And then, yeah, first I'm going to respect all the Sangha member and then welcome everyone who's participating with it. So the first Vandana will lead by Venerable Sunim Nakagaki, his Japanese monk. And then meditation is led by Bande Rahulathero. So wonderful. See, and then Dharma talk. Today we invite two speakers. The Venerable Punyashri and then Venerable Los Antonio. So thank you for accepting our request and then sharing your insight here. And then 30 minutes, after that 30 minutes, we are having discussion on like question answer. So we just lead who's leading by the Bande Kamalashri Thero. And then final dedication prayer we lead by Bande Sudataro. So thank you very much. And then I hope today's our discussion or Dhamma lecture will be goes very well and benefit all. Thank you so much. And then now I'm going to ask you, the Bande Venerable Sunim Nagakagi, please lead your mandana.
Thank you so much. So yeah, good evening, everyone. So I have today in my background the galaxy. So I think the Dharma itself is a very what do you call it, universal truth that we are talking about. So we're in an entire galaxy, and so that's the image that I'd like to have it here today. So with my background here. So, and also I just wanted to mention, of course, since you didn't mention much, but Ukraine situations, so many people are killed, and so I think it would be nice to dedicate a prayer for those who lost their lives, and also hopefully finish soon for any of the the killing peoples and all those conditions that they are facing for the for their the Ukrainian peoples very, very difficult. So hopefully there will be less suffering, and hope they will find a good place. So with that, I would like to do the Bandana Tisarana, but I was in Japanese chanting. Okay, so please join me in meditation. With our mind, with our sincere mind, I respect Buddha, the awakened one to the truth. With sincere mind, I respect to take refuge in the Dharma, the teaching of the Buddha, or truth that the Buddha revealed. So, with sincere mind, I respect and take refuge in Sangha, those who practice the Buddha Dharma. Peace to you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable Nagaki. So I hope your commitment will be finished on time. Have a good night. Thank you. So, and please, I'd like to invite Pande Rahul Theru lead the meditation.
So this meditation is going to be on the Buddhanusati, qualities of the Buddha. And so as we're doing this meditation, to contemplate those qualities of the Buddha. But, first I'm going to chant the Namo Buddhaya to center and focus our minds. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened One. Iti piso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho. Homage to the Blessed One, the worthy one, the fully enlightened one. He was blessed because he has attained that blessed state of nibbana beyond all suffering, so hard to achieve. He's worthy, and for that reason, he's worthy of respect and offering. And he's fully enlightened by himself, by his accumulation of the paramis over many hundreds of lifetimes and through his own efforts, without the aid of other teachers. He brought the light of truth into the spiritual darkness of the time. Vidya charana sampano. He was endowed with true knowledge and conduct. At that time, the real truth had been obscured, and he brought the true light of the Dhamma, the knowledge of all the higher knowledges, and the knowledge of the path and fruits leading to Nibbana. And he was endowed with perfect conduct to inspire all the people who wanted to follow the teachings of the path to peace. Sugato lokavidu. He's well gone. He's well gone. He traversed that noble eightfold path to the highest pure state. And he's well gone to that state of peace and compassion. Lokavidu. He's the knower of the three worlds. The world of the sensory realm, the world of the fine forms, and even the formless worlds. And he knew all the different kinds of karma that lead to rebirth in those various realms. But then he knew even the realm beyond the three worlds, a state of the Nibbana, which is beyond any conditioned world. Anuttaro Purisa Dhamma Sarati. He is the highest trainer of persons to be tamed. He tamed the murderer Angulimala. He tamed the wild drunken elephant Nalika. He also tamed other demons and other Brahmins who tried to convert him in the wrong views. Satta Deva Manusanam. He was also the teacher of devas and gods. Even the devas came to the Buddha to learn from him, and even some of the Brahma gods in the Brahma realms. He went and taught them also the truths, as well as countless hundreds and thousands of human beings from 2,500 years ago up to the present moment, bringing the light of the true path into the world and teaching the people to the path of higher morality, higher concentration, and higher wisdom. Buddho Bhagavati. He's the Buddha, the fully awakened, the truly blessed one. So now let us spend a few minutes just contemplating these qualities of the Buddha in your own way. Now I want to hand the program back over to Geshe for begin to learn how the Buddha manifested these wonderful qualities in his life, his growing up, even before he became the Buddha and afterward. So I'll turn it over to you, Geshe.
Thank you so much, Bandiraula. So wonderful chanting and meditating meditation. So now, I invite Bande Punyashri to talk on Buddha's life story from childhood until living family life. So, and then Bande Punyashri, you have a 20 minute. So please welcome.
I hope everyone can hear me, right?
We can hear you, yeah.
Thank you. And good evening and good morning, wherever you are. And it is happy to see that venerable monks and hopefully some nuns are there. So the monastics, all monastics, you all have been engaged in one of the wonderful tasks as a monk and nun. So my participation here today is due to our Venerable Sutadhara Thero's invitation. He invited me to make a short presentation, actually, on the life story of the Buddha. But today, as I came to know that we are focusing on the childhood, from the childhood up to the renunciation time. I know that all the monks, all the venerable monks here, we are really, really familiar with the Buddha's life story, but still, as Venerable Sutadhara Thero explained to me, our attempt, our endeavor here is to meet the southern and northern traditions together, encounter this northern tradition and the southern tradition together, and see how we can come to a consensus. So the Buddha's life story across the board, we accept certain things unanimously without any trouble. But the very important thing here, before we focus on the life events of the Buddha, to me it seems like this is not an academic presentation, because I know that this is not academic audience. I see in Buddha's, when we are going to construct the story of the Buddha, I see there have been two attempts have been taken by many scholars and others. One attempt is based on the archaeological and historical evidences. Some scholars have tried to construct the story of the life story of the Buddha based on the available sources. When I say available sources, either literary sources or archaeological, epigraphical, or other kinds of data. In their attempt, they have compared and contrasted different sources and try to construct, this is the important thing, construct the life story, construct the story of the Buddha. When I say this thing, you should be able to remember different people when they started their projects. But the thing is, when you look at in this way, based on the available sources, either epigraphical or archaeological sources, they are not concerned about the myths and wonderful things that are circulating in the history. They are concerned about facts. And this approach, in this scholars' approach, what has happened is Buddha has appeared as a human being, because they are trying to construct Buddha as a human figure. Because when you are trying to find the historical evidences, that's what usually happens. So I don't have to give examples here, but you know what I am talking. And the second attempt is that some scholars have been in the effort that the story of the Buddha, the fragmentary references scattered in the various sources. When I say various sources, earliest strata of the Pali canon, as well as later literary contributions made by different monks and different scholars. Based on this thing, in that attempt, they are not concerned about the historical, stratification of these sources. They are not concerned about those things, whether it is historical, earlier, later, no. What they are concerned is the ethical and moralistic value of the story. So they tried to construct the Buddha's life story. I think it's religious, more or less religious way of looking at Buddha's life story. So I'm not supporting none of these, but if I support, I would like to go with the first attempt, not the second one. But we have to accept the fact that all over the world, across the board, people look at the Buddha, his life story, in two different ways. So it's up to us to, side either that or this. So these two attempts, historical way of looking at the Buddha, as well as constructing his life story based on various sources, religiously and religious values and moral values. So these two attempts I see in the history of the study of the life story of the Buddha. And now, today we are focusing on from his childhood to up to renunciation. So our Theravada tradition, we uphold the Pali canon so much that we rely on the facts found in those texts, Pali texts, with a lot of respect. But we see within the Pali canon itself, you are able to see that there are certain, how do I say, discrepancies of the incidents, certain life events of the Buddha. If you look at the sources, of the Pali Canon, there are many sutras where the Buddha himself says that he was reflecting on his past life events and things like that. And some other Brahmins and others were talking about the Buddha, but we do not find a complete life story. The gaps, there are big gaps. So everybody accepts that Buddha's mother and father, father as Suddhodana and Mahamaya as mother. In the northern tradition also there are some stories on that thing. But the Buddha never mentions in the Pali Sutras, he does not mention the name of his father or mother. But in later texts, we find the names. And one other thing that we have to, another thing that we have to be really concerned about, why during the time of the Buddha, he did not pay attention to of his autobiography. When we look at the people today in this world, including ourselves, we are so concerned about our life events. But in his case, as these venerable monks, you know, Buddha's attitude was not to look for the life story, life events, not to highlight those things, but to respect the Dhamma or learn Dhamma. That's, you know, the example like Wakali Thera's incident, it clearly says that what is the use of this body? Only thing that you have to pay attention is to learn Dharma. Yo Dhammang Pasati, so Mang Pasati, the statement. These things suggest that Buddha did not encourage about his life story. So the disciples were encouraged not to be concerned about those things, but to practice Dhamma or learn Dhamma. That is why in early Buddhism, in early stage of the Buddhist era, we do not find a complete biography of the Buddha. Somehow, with the little references that we find in the Pali Canon, later we were able to find, I mean, the monks in later ages, they were able to construct the life story of the Buddha with a lot of other additions. Very important text in this regard is what you may call the Buddha Vangsa. It is included in the Tripitaka, but most of the time people accept it as a later text. In that text, Buddha Vangsa, is very important in three important aspects. You see three important things in this book. The very first one is, in this book, it says it talks about the past existence of the Buddha. I mean, Gautama Buddha's past existence from the Buddha Dipankara. From Dipankara Buddha's time, the present Buddha, Gautama Buddha, he was there, he existed, because he receives the, what do you call, the resolution to become the future Buddha. With that story, Buddha Vangsa starts with the this new thing. You do not find that that mention in the other sutras or anywhere. It comes after Buddha Vangsa. And the second aspect is Now we are talking about past Buddhas. In the Pali Canon, you see 6 past Buddhas, Kapusanda, Konagamana, etc. But in this Buddha Vansa, it says there were 24 past Buddhas. So that's a new concept in that text. So we see a development of this idea over there, as opposed to the 6 Buddhas. And then the other important thing in this book is the mention of the perfections, parami, as 10 paramis, numbered as 10 in these books, in this book, Buddha Vansa. So it is when we are concerned about the life story of the Buddha, Buddha Vansa is very important landmark. I don't know in what period it came into existence. Somehow it looks like a later edition. Very clearly it shows the its later edition. And when we are talking about the life story of the Buddha again, the complete life story we find in what you may call the Jatakatta Kata Nidana, or the commentary on the Jataka tales. That was usually, we believe that was written in around 5th century, but based on some other sources which were available in Sinhalese, maybe 200 years earlier, perhaps. So in there, Buddhaghosa, Venerable Buddhaghosa is constructing the complete story of the Buddha, complete life story of the Buddha. So in there, according to, we have to be now, we have to be based on his presentation when we are talking about the childhood of the Buddha, childhood of the Siddhartha. So there are some, I see, I know there are venerable monks from the other traditions. Some disagreements you may find in this presentation, but whatever the way, I'm not going to talk about the different incidents of the Buddha's life, but what we have to focus is that things have changed, things have developed from the earliest strata of the canon up until the 5th century, perhaps. Buddha's life story, the story itself has developed within the tradition, within the Theravada tradition itself. So not to speak about the other traditions, in every tradition, it has been, developed into a very higher level. But one of the important things in Theravada tradition is, I do not say that it is devoid of those mysterious things. No, it is full of mysteries and myths and other things. But still, Theravada tradition tries to believe the, how do I say, the human nature of the Buddha in many places. And of course, as followers, we like to see our master or our teacher as a very high, with a personality with higher capacities and other miraculous things. So in my view, I see the events of the lives of the Buddha, the later monks made the Buddha. Buddha made the Sangha. we accept it. Buddha made the Sangha and Sangha made the Buddha. Don't misunderstand my statement. Sangha made the, when I say Sangha made the Buddha, it means that Sangha, created, constructed the events of the Buddha's life. When I say Sangha, it is not just Theravada Sangha, Northern and Southern, both traditions, they have contributed in big way to create his life story. So from the childhood up until the renunciation, that is usually taken as 29 years in Theravada tradition. So during these 29 years, usually the mention is made that Siddhartha had the opportunity of having a very luxurious life. It's accepted without any disagreement. He had complete luxuries, enjoying his life. And even Jatakatta, it says that King Suddhodana wanted his son to be away from the miseries of life, and he should lead a life full of luxuries. That's why, the mansions that he prepared for 3 different seasons and all that. And one of the important incidents of the life of during this period of time, one of the most important things I see when Siddhartha was like 5 months old, he engaged in meditation under the rose apple tree, that incident. And Buddha himself mentioned about that thing when he was giving a sermon I think it was in Mahapadana Sutta or something, as far as I remember. He was talking about his past experience. He was engaged in Ariyapariyesana Sutta. Yes, Ariyapariyesana Sutta. He was saying that I was engaged in meditation as a young baby, 5 months old baby. So that mention is there in the Pali Canon. So in this way, about that incident and the seeing the 4 sides, those things are popular in the Theravada tradition. And so all in all, what we can see here is a development of a big character, to make a person a higher one. The tradition has given so much attention on that side. So in Theravada point of view, you cannot blame Venerable Buddha Gosa because he constructed, no, I don't think so. He got those ideas from the existing tradition. So these stories and life events and the names and other things, their parents' names and all those things, in a common source, it should be there circulating in the Buddhist world in a common way. And the way different monks and others when they were constructing the life events, they created those things beautifully. In in northern tradition, we have the Buddha Charita and the Mahavastu and all those things. It's poetic. So mysteries and different things that we cannot believe are included there. But when concerned about our purpose in learning these things, we have to have a better understanding of what has happened in the history. So I believe that Theravada tradition, even though most of the time people say that the life story of the Buddha is kind of historical or it's easy to believe, some events are easy to believe, but most of the other things are later additions.
Bande Punyashri, sorry. So, Bande Punyashri, hello?
Punyasiri, we can't hear you.
Yeah, I don't know.
Between
Bande.
yeah, so I'm concluding my my presentation, not a presentation actually, my views on this thing, Buddha's childhood up until the renunciation, the events that are famous. We all know all those things, but maybe in the I know in the northern tradition, these events are depicted or elaborated in a different way sometimes, but commonly accepted common ground is that Buddha or Siddhartha, or according to northern tradition, Sarvartha Siddha, the name is given as Sarvartha Siddha. He had a luxurious life, and he became unsatisfied with the luxuries of life and later decided to leave, renounce. So with that, I conclude my my views on this thing. And later when we engage in question and answers, Q&A session, maybe I can contribute some more. Thank you very much, Venerable Sutadhara and the other monastic Sangha members for giving me this opportunity to share certain things with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bande Punyashri. So before I invite Los Antonio, so I forget to ask you, can you please briefly introduce by yourself?
Oh, I am Bante Aparaki Punyasiri. I'm the head monk here at Maitri Vihara Buddhist Meditation Center in Los Angeles, Sun Valley. I have been engaged in studies for a long time and practicing as a Buddhist monk here.
Thank you so much. And then it's wonderful. And also here we are trying to educate it with the both tradition. So please welcome to say whatever you have a knowledge about both traditions, Southern and Northern tradition, please welcome to open for it. So because we do not see all these Buddha's teachings are contradictory. For example, Buddha taught the four different tenet school, and all these four different tenet school has a different type of view, but still Buddha do have an answer for that, even saying differently, totally completely saying it, but we do have an answer for that. So therefore we try to learning each other, whatever your tradition, and then try to conclude it with why Buddha saying these two different things, why Buddha mentioned this. That's how we try to do here. Please welcome to open for that. We don't mind anything.
Right.
Thank you so much. And now I'd like to invite Venerable Lobsang Tenyola, and please again introduce by yourself first, and then go ahead to your presentations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Geshe Lobsang Aguila and Venerable Punyasri. And clearly I am a much junior monk, so it is a true honor to be in the presence of such senior elder monks here. So introducing myself, my name is Lobsang Tenye. I am from the USA, but a student in the Sarah J. Monastic University, which is a Tibetan monastery relocated in the south of India. And I am currently not there because of the situation with the pandemic, and then had a fairly serious injury. So I'm currently staying at the Dharma Center DNKL, where Geshe Lobsang Tarke is the presiding teacher. So that's my introduction. And I'm only in the 5th year of the program of this 20-year course called the Geshe degree. And so I am quite new to the study of Dharma, but I will try my best to present something interesting. And to be quite frank, let me just start off by saying I absolutely love the story of the Buddha. No matter how many times I hear it or read varying versions of it, I find it deeply inspiring. And one of the general qualities of the Tibetan tradition, or the maybe very specifically homing in on just one Dharma tradition, is called the Lamrim, or the stages of the path teachings. And within those teachings, there's an understanding that one of the great qualities of studying this stages of the path literature or teaching is that you come to see that all of the teachings the Buddha gave are instructions for personal practice. So I think that's one way to take the life story of the Buddha as instruction for personal practice. So to be honest, I've never been as interested in trying to figure out the exact historical situation, or the way that history scholars might regard the story of the Buddha, his, the differences and perhaps contradictions between the historical understanding versus the understanding in the traditional literature. And to be honest, like Geshe just said, this also is something where maybe there's contradiction in some of the kind of the way it looks, but at the same time, we can see how, well, in reality, there's just many different things going on. The Buddha had so many different disciples, and he maybe told one disciple something and another disciple something else. And this is, something we really see in our lives. It's backed up by a common experience and just kind of common sense. I mean, I have my own personal, main teacher who I've known since I was 16 years old, and great teacher, just passed away yesterday. And he had many students. He was a very high teacher in the Tibetan tradition, former abbot of the Dalai Lama's personal monastery, and everyone's saying something different. Oh, Rinpoche told me. Rinpoche is the respectful term for a high teacher in Tibetan. Rinpoche told me this, and someone else says Rinpoche told me this, and there are totally different things. Well, maybe he just told 2 different things to 2 different people. And likewise, this is also possible with the Buddha, right? So I think as a general kind of overall way of, regarding the different explanations or stories or accounts that we find in different literatures, we just, it just makes sense to me to just kind of take that, common sense perspective of like, well, we see this in our own lives all the time. You can take the pandemic itself as, some people see it in a completely different way. Now, sometimes someone might be wrong, but sometimes there's still little bits of truth to very different ways of speaking about something, right? So, okay, then let me just start off then, or that was a start, but I'll just go, of course, the monastics here are familiar, but there are a few also non-monastics here who might be less familiar with the story. So what I'll do is I'll first start off with just a brief outline of the events of this early part of Buddha's life, his adolescence and early adulthood, his childhood, adolescence, and early adulthood. according to specifically a sutra called the Play in Full Sutra. This has been translated into English from the Tibetan, and the Sanskrit title is the Lalita Vistara Sutra. So this is the main, or I would say in the Tibetan canon, which has, well, the Tibetan canon includes both translations of the Buddha's word, which is the Kangyur, as well as translations of commentaries called the Tengyur. So those are both included in the canon, the kind of formalized canon. So it's not only the Buddha's word, they're sort of put on equal footing, actually, the commentaries and the Buddha's word. So the main, the most explicit, most detailed explanation of the Buddha's life is in this sutra, the Play in Full Sutra. So I'll do that. And then I will give a sort of more general perspective of the Mahayana tradition about how the deeds of the Buddha are regarded with some other sutra sources. And then I'll try and talk about a little bit, what are those lessons? If we're looking at all of the teachings of the Buddha as personal instructions, personal advice for our own practice, well, what is the advice to take from the life story of the Buddha? And again, in this tradition, in this context, we're accepting, for the sake of, well, just for the sake of being able to get through the talk, we'll accept that the Buddha actually did teach this, and just kind of hold out our skepticism for a few moments. And so we'll just say the Buddha did teach this, and so what is the advice to take from it? And then I'll give a little bit of a perspective that comes more in, that's more unique to the Tibetan tradition, and here the Tibetan tradition coming as an offshoot or an inheritance of the pramana, the logic tradition of Dharmakirti, and that is from India, of course. So the logic tradition of Dharmakirti is one of the primary kind of backbones of the ways in which Tibetan academic study is conducted through this kind of rigorous logical analysis of things. So let's start by just going through the outline of what happened in the Buddha's life in this phase, right? So in general, we talk about 12 deeds of the Buddha in this tradition. So we have 12 deeds of the Buddha. They're actually listed a little bit differently depending on which source you find, but in general, there are 6 that occurred while he was a lay person, or we actually would phrase it more like while he was giving the display of being a lay person, and then 6 while he was giving the display of an awakened, of a renunciate. And so why do we say given the display of? Because the general idea is that the Buddha actually was already awakened, fully awakened to Samyak Sambodhi, to Buddhahood, before he actually even took birth in the womb of, out from the womb of Queen Maya. So that's, but we'll get to why that perspective comes to take hold, or how you could think of it in a sort of logical way, why that would make sense to think of it that way. And so what are these 6 deeds that occurred when the Buddha was giving the display, putting on a display as a layperson? It was first, he dwelt in his birth before manifesting his final birth in Tushita. So he dwelt in the realm of Tushita. That's the first deed. So this is actually even, he wasn't even on this planet yet. Then the deed of moving down from Tushita, leaving leaving Tushita, and that's when he crowned Maitreya as the next Buddha, to be the next one who would awaken as a Buddha. Then he entered the womb of Queen Maya in the form of this white elephant with 6 tusks, and in the dream that Queen Maya had. Then he took birth right under the sala tree from the right side of Queen Maya, when it was a completely painless birth, and all these wonderful, miraculous things occurred, and the Buddha took 7 steps in each direction and made these amazing declarations. So very, miraculous there, right? And then after that, he performed the activities of youth, which is sometimes described as that he, in a different way, which is that he excelled in the 5 arts and sciences. So he basically, grew up, right? He did the things a kid does, went to school, played sports, but he kicked butt at all those things. He was extremely talented, kind of savant, you could say, as a child and youth. And then finally in his, after his youth, or actually the sort of transition from the reason as given in this plain full sutra for why he ended up engaging in this very, drawn out competition of physical prowess was in order to win a wife, actually. So the parents of this princess wouldn't readily give their daughter to the Buddha as a wife, to Siddhartha as a wife, because he looked at him and said, this kid's just sitting in the palace all of his life, and he's like a weak little like scrawny little punk. He can't have my daughter. So that's what the father of Yosadhara of the Buddha's to be wife said. And so the Buddha said, come on, I can take on anyone. And so that's when they had this big competition, and the Buddha showed how how much prowess he had in all these different realms. And then so finally the sixth, so that's the performing the activity of youth, which immediately leads into the sixth deed of taking the wife and enjoying the pleasures of sensuality and having a whole like a pantheon of women around him. This whole this text lists the number as 84,000 but anyway, he had that opportunity to enjoy the pleasures of samsara. So that's just the overview of the life now of this part of the Buddhist life. So how does the Mahayana tradition, especially in the Tibetan, as it morphed and evolved into Tibet, or first in northern India and then into Tibet, look at all this? Well, one of the basic principles is that any Buddha, all Buddhas, have three bodies. So not just a physical body, but they have three bodies. And so that sort of lays the theoretical foundation for how to look at the Buddha's life and the deeds that he performed. So what are those three bodies? Well, they're described in the Three Bodies Sutra. So I'll just read a couple verses from that sutra. This is translated into English. Son of a noble family, the Dharmakaya of the Tathagata consists in the fact that he has no nature, just like the sky. His Sambhogakaya consists in the fact that he comes forth, just like a cloud. His Nirmanakaya consists in the activity of all the Buddhas, the fact that it soaks everything, just like the rain. So those are the three bodies, the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, and the Nirmanakaya. Now, what is another quality of these? Well, there's another verse that follows shortly after. Son of a noble family, the Dharmakaya remains the same nature for all the Buddhas. The Sambhogakaya remains the same meditative absorption, that's jhana, the same jhana for all the Buddhas. The Nirmanakaya remains the same awakened activity for all the Buddhas. So we have this notion that, and this is a sutra itself, right? So, but it really influences this kind of thinking, right? Really influences the whole Mahayana tradition, that you have these different sort of levels or realms of a Buddha, different qualities of the Buddha. This truth, this nature of all the Buddhas, that's the Dharmakaya, which is sort of not visible to any other beings. It's just visible or experienceable by the Buddhas. The Sambhogakaya is the same meditative absorption for all the Buddhas. So that's something that's only perceptible by those in deep meditative absorption, or what we can call is like the Arya Bodhisattvas, the beings who are deeply realized already, but not quite yet Buddhas. They would experience the Sambhogakaya form. And the Nirmanakaya, that remains the same awakened activity. So that's the awakened activity, like the 12 deeds of the Buddha, like what the Buddha performed. So we have this notion that everything the Buddha did, from the moment he was in Tushita heaven down to when he actually passed away into Parinirvana, all of that is this awakened activity of all the Buddhas. Okay, so it's sort of this, that's sort of like general Mahayana sense of how to look at that. There's other, sources I could mention, maybe time's running out, so maybe in the Q&A, if anyone wants to hear anything else. But, well, actually, this is important, so I'll just say it because it's very relevant. So, and it's relevant to the basic question of, well, how do we sort of navigate all these different sources and different perspectives about who the Buddha was and even what he taught, right? So this comes from a sutra called The Introduction to the Domain of the Inconceivable Qualities and Wisdom of the Tathagatas. Long title, but it's worth it because it's such a good sutra. So here the Buddha says, Manjushri, whatever colors, conduct, and location will instruct those sentient beings. Those are precisely the colors, conduct, and location in which those sentient beings see the Tathagata as present before them. Manjushri, whatever Dharma teaching will develop sentient beings, this is precisely the Dharma that they hear taught. Manjushri, whatever deeds will cause sentient beings to engage with the teaching of the Tathagata are precisely the deeds in which the Tathagata engages. All the deeds of the Tathagata are spontaneously and non-conceptually accomplished. So here we have the deeds right here, right? The deeds of the Buddha. Well, what are they? Well, anything that will help sentient beings, cause sentient beings to engage with the teaching of the Tathagata are those deeds that they will observe the Buddha performing. So again, this brings us to the 12 deeds of the Buddha, even before he sat on the throne of enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. They're all emanations or activities or deeds of a fully awakened being as teachings, right? They're helping beings to engage in the activity, engage with the teachings, engage with the Dharma. So, and like Venerable Punyasiri also said, you know, the kind of sense of the historical analysis and, you know, the picture that comes forth, that emerges, is Buddha as a human figure. Well, that makes perfect sense. What is that really, you know, bringing this perspective into the equation? Well, that's totally reasonable for those beings, those, you know, those history scholars, those, you know, people who, anyway, whoever they are, it's beneficial for them. It's helping them to engage with the Dharma, to see Buddha in that way as an ordinary human being. So Buddha appears to them as an ordinary human being. No problem. He appears to others as a fully awakened being. No problem. So he just appears to different people in different ways, depending on what will benefit each of those disciples or people, even if they don't become formal disciples. So that's a general kind of take on just the Mahayana way of thinking about the Buddha and his deeds. Okay, we're running out of time. So now we'll go into the lessons that we can actually get from these particular, you know, this particular part of the Buddha's life, his early life. Well, I mean, this particular sutra, this Lalita Vastara, the play in full, really, you know, is like a lot of Mahayana sutras, very profuse in its descriptive content, and, you know, the vastness and the extraordinariness of all these things that the Buddha does. So like when he goes to school for the first time as a young child, and also, you know, the event of him sitting under the apple tree is also in this sutra, where he goes into the 4 jhanas sequentially, serially. But so he goes to school after that, and, you know, he already knows 64 scripts before the teacher even says anything. He already like has all this great knowledge. So in one sense, it's just like how amazing, you know, the qualities really are of a being like that. So it's just inspiring. You helps you to develop faith. It helps you to develop the desire to become like that, to develop that kind of knowledge. So it gives you encouragement on the path, right? And then even you can see how, you know, if you maybe just look at the Buddha's life story from a more human, you know, in a more human context, maybe not that he already had all that knowledge, but just that he excelled in everything that he tried in his studies and athletics. You can see people like this maybe in your life who, you know, are like really, really like prodigies, and they're just really, really, you know, brilliant people who are able to excel in whatever they try. But you also notice, at least I have one person who lives in my house group in the monastery. He's, you know, recently graduated from this Geshe course, and he's top of his class every year, you know, that's for 25 years straight. He's like the best soccer player in the monastery. He's very good at a lot of things. He's a science scholar who was sent to Emory University to study science as a Tenzin Gyatso science scholar. but he's not just like a lazy, just like sit back and everything just comes to him, but he works his butt off constantly to do that, to be able to, so he has a natural ability, but he also has extraordinary effort. So I think this is one of the lessons we can take away from the Buddha's life, that even if you have some, whatever natural ability you have, because everyone has something, to really make it reach its full potential, we have to, put the effort in and really keep the consistent kind of, effort to learn, to develop, to become, proficient in some skill. And then, of course, we have what also Venerable Punyasari had kind of discussed, the Buddha in, being dissatisfied with the pleasures that he experienced when he was enjoying the, his wife and consorts and whoever was, around him. So that's also something, in our modern era, the Buddha, if we make it by analogy, he lived in this palace with everything he could imagine, never seeing the, dangers of the world. And like that, we also have basically every pleasure at our fingertips whenever we want it. Death is hidden out of sight. But you know what? Is it really all that satisfying? So we also can develop this sense of, dissatisfaction with the pleasures of samsara. Okay, so I think that isn't enough. So thank you very much. And please hope you have some questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Venerable Lobsang Dönyo. And then it's not connected with our today's topic, but just briefly mention it here, that these days from March 3rd to up to like a 20th, we celebrating Buddha Miracle Day, the Tibetan, based on the Tibetan tradition. The Buddha Miracle Day, which is what's called Mahapatiharyam. It is like it's in organized by King Bimbisara and King Prasanajit, right? So in Saravasti, and then Buddha actually computation did with 6 non-Buddhist teacher with the magical, right, miracles. And then the main points that Buddha tried to reduce their inner, some kind of inner afflictions. So, and then the 15th day, the last day, actually Buddha really reduced them, all these inner, what called inner mara, inner afflictions. That's what we believe, that's we celebrating this time, just let you know. And thank you so much. And then I'm going to pass this to Bande Kamalashiri, which is leading the question and answer sections. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lamaji, and thank you so much, Bante Punyasiri. And again, it is a little bit difficult to me pronounce the name. Yes. Now today is the second day of the discussion about the life of Buddha. Then in history, and as Buddhist nowadays, we study the life of Buddha for several reasons. I think number one, the main purpose is the developing the Shraddha, or our confidence of Buddha, and practice Buddhanusati. That's mean the concentrate on qualities of Buddha. That is the majority of the Buddhist world people do and study the life of Buddha. Then again in sutras we can find the details about what Buddha taught about his life that is like an autobiography. For purpose of that is the Buddha wanted to explain how he improved his mind and develop it and attain to the Buddhahood. That the second way. Third one is the nowadays the historians and archaeologists try to get evidence and find the life of the Buddha. Then as Buddhist, what we have to do, we are three of this base, we have to take all of this knowledge, and we can figure out the biography of the Buddha. That is the best thing we have to do, and then our people can practice the Buddhanusati also, the Shraddha, the confidence of the Buddha. And it would be cause for the Nibbana. Then today, I have to thank again Bante Punyasiri and Lamaji, who explain today topic. And today topic was the life of the Buddha before renunciation, or from the childhood to until left from the home. Then it is time to the people, our other members, if they have any questions, or to ask something about the today topic from any speakers. Maybe both of them, if need, they will answer to that. Just you can ask from your question if you have questions. But before that, I want to again ask that question from both of you. Within both your talks, the explanations, I short out and list of the incidents. The first is the visiting of Asita, who was the teacher of Suddhodana. Then naming festival, or naming festival. The third one is the death of mother, or demise of the mother. Then after that, the first attend to the first jhana. After that, the education, incidents of Swan with the Devadatta, and the marriage and birth of the Rahula. These are the incidents before renunciation, and foresight also. I think I like to ask that question, first question from the Bante Punyasiri. From this list, which is incidents we can find in the basic Theravadian resource from Sutra and other commentaries?
Well, in the sutras, in the earliest, if we accept it as the earliest strata of the canon, some of the sutras mentions about some incidents, like the I told you the incident at the rose apple tree, attaining first jhana. We in the tradition says first jhana, right? But in places 4 jhanas were attained at that place. In the sutras, I don't think the other incidents are mentioned. But in the Atthakatha, the complete list of those things are mentioned, elaborated actually. According to my understanding, in the earlier sutras, none of these events are mentioned.
But we can find some details in the Khuddaka Nikaya.
I told you that Buddha Vansa belongs to Khuddaka Nikaya. So over there you find, of course, the story of these events. when I say the earliest part of the Tripitaka, I mean the canon, only that incident is mentioned. Am I right or wrong? I don't know. My understanding is that Buddhavansa I take as a later text.
Yes, Buddhavansa is latest text, but the I don't know the other Charya Pitaka.
Buddhavansa, Charya Pitaka, both, yes.
Yeah.
But we cannot throw them away. You know, the books, we cannot throw them away. But when you analyze these things, the earliest mention is only that incident.
Then the next question for the Lamaji, are there any other extra incidents or details in the Mahayana books?
Yeah, there's a lot.
Other than these incidents.
Yeah, there's a lot of extra, subplots that develop within those. The 12 deeds are sort of the general categories of things happening in the Buddhist life. But within that, there's a lot of characters that come in, a lot of different, specific details. So, I would just recommend reading, and, not tons of time to go through it all, but the sutra is translated into English, and it really just reads like a story, from start to finish of what happened in the Buddhist life. It's organized in chapters. I think there's maybe 15 chapters. And it is, sorry, there are more than that. There are 27 chapters. And so this is called the Play in Full Sutra. And if it's in the website of the 84,000 project, that's the project to translate the entire Tibetan Kangir into English and other modern languages. So this is one that they've completed so far. They've been working on this project since 2011, and there's many sutras already translated. So this is one of those. So again, the Play in Full Sutra. You can just look for that.
I have a question for Lama Ji, and Punisiri Hamdur also can answer if he has any idea. I have heard, I have never heard it in Theravada tradition, but in Mahayana tradition from somewhere, that Prince Siddhartha has invented the Brahmi letter characters or some kind of alphabet. Is it mentioned in Lalita Vistara, or do you have any idea? Is it
he invented an alphabet?
Yeah,
He prepared a new alphabet.
New alphabet.
He prepared a new alphabet. That is not in this particular sutra or any of the other ones that I've seen. However, what is recorded in this sutra as the describes is when he went to school and did his education, he already knew 64 different languages or scripts, and that some of them the teacher didn't even know. So maybe that's a related story.
Is it come from Lalita Vistara or someone any other?
That's the source. Yeah, that's really the main source that I've seen that really goes into detail about any of these, activities. There are other Mahayana sutras that have sort of general mention of some of these things, but not in such detail that I've seen. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any other question from any other listeners?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello. So when it says that the Buddha appears to other beings the way they would like for him to appear, does that mean like literally, or does it mean that he appears to other people because another human being will see anything external to them from the internal perspective of that human being? Or does it mean that Buddha has the ability to see the other person's internal perspective and appear in such a way to tailor to that human being?
Well, maybe I can, but I assume that's directed more, since I talked about that aspect of or that perspective, more towards me than Venerable Punyasari. So I'll just say, I maybe can throw back the question to you. What would be the difference between those two things? I mean, how would you tell the difference between those two things? So what you're saying, if I hear you correctly, is it that the Buddha is literally appearing differently because he can see, or she can see, the dispositions and the needs and the spiritual maturity of an individual, and is appearing to them sort of intentionally? Or is it just that the Buddha is there and they just happen to see the Buddha in a certain way? And I'm asking, well, what really is the difference between those two? How could you tell the difference between those two?
The difference between the two would be that means that the Buddha has an ability that to basically see the internal perspective of a different human being.
Oh yeah, well that for sure is part of the understanding of this tradition, that the Buddha is omniscient, and the mind of the Buddha perceives all phenomena, including the minds of all living beings. Yeah. No, but it did say in the quote I read, recall that, and I'll just go back to it quickly because it was a very short quote, and it just says, all the deeds of the Tathagata are spontaneously and non-conceptually accomplished. So it's not the idea that the Buddha is sitting around going, oh, what does that being need? Let me think about it for an hour, and then manifests. It's spontaneous, it's non-conceptual. So somehow the Buddha has developed the ability to do that, but it also is asserted or accepted that he is aware, or knows the minds of others. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
There is a question in chat box. It is asking this: are not these these creations of Buddha's life stories having a different purpose of attracting ordinary people to the path of Dhamma? Do you think development of such stories are against Dhamma?
Well, let me say something. I do not think that presentation of Buddha in this manner, with mysterious things and other things, is a method of teaching. Different people like different methods, different personalities, different capacities. So in order to their capacity, they
different
can
approach.
Huh?
Different approach also.
Yeah, it's different approach also. So anybody who is wishing to see Buddha as a miraculous person with all kinds of abilities and all knowing, can perform many miracles and things like that, of course the Buddha is there in that manner. So for a different person, Buddha is capable of giving Dhamma talks in a nice way so that everybody can understand. The Buddha can earlier, at the beginning, he can understand the audience very clearly, like scanning their minds and all that. That's one ability. So in that way, I think that's why I made the statement that Sangha made the Buddha. Buddha made the Sangha, Sangha made the Buddha. So the way that we want to approach the Buddha, so different approaches, different methods of method of seeing him. To me, any other, I don't know.
Good evening, everyone. I have a question. I was always under the impression that the Buddha of our time, that the first time he entered this realm and manifested as a human was as Prince Siddhartha. But am I hearing that Buddha Shakyamuni was here in this realm before that manifestation as Prince Siddhartha?
So this is more asking about the Mahayana perspective?
Oh, I don't know,
or
but
just in general?
I guess in general.
Oh, well, do you want to, from the Theravada perspective, do you want to?
Go ahead.
Okay, well, I mean, so I guess it's funny because we're saying the Mahayana or the northern schools, there's really a lot of different ways of dividing up Buddhist schools. Another way that the Tibetan tradition itself does it is in terms of 4 philosophical paradigms or different tenet systems. So this is sort of a hermeneutical method, meaning a method of interpretation of all the Buddha's teachings and commentary, the commentarial literature, to try and be able to say, okay, why is this style of explanation like this, which seems contradictory to another style? Well, then the Tibet, it started in India, but it's very popular in Tibet. That tradition, they said, well, because there's these 4 different, like completely different worldviews of Buddhism or different philosophical paradigms. So even within the Tibetan tradition, all these are sort of looked at and considered. So from the perspective of, for instance, the Vaibhashika, what's called the Vaibhashika or the Great Exposition School,
correct,
or paradigm, then no, the Buddha was a bodhisattva who had trained for 3 countless eons until his last, life before enlightenment in Tushita, and he came to take birth from Queen Maya and attained full awakening under the Bodhi tree, and that's when he became Shakyamuni Buddha. Before that, he was Siddhartha Gautama. So not just saying Mahayana or northern schools, but looking more philosophically at these differences from the Madhyamaka tradition, the Madhyamaka, the middle way philosophical tradition, then that's where we can say that the Buddha, and also the Chittamatra or mind-only position, we can say that's where we have this idea of the 3 bodies of the Buddha, that the Buddha was actually fully awakened before he manifested any of these deeds. And again, this is connected with the logic tradition of pramana, or this kind of logic. And one of the reasons, logically speaking, for why that's asserted is simply because the way the ordinary understanding, the common understanding of the story goes, is that under the Bodhi tree, on the eve of Buddha's awakening, he first directly saw the 4 noble truths. And it's the first time he saw the arising and passing away of beings. And that's, then if we go to, like, again, the more philosophically, inclined teaching, where we see how there's 5 paths: path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, path of no more learning. We see that that's really sort of something that happens on the path of seeing. So now what we really see is that, well, what you would have to accept, just logically speaking, is that the Buddha attained the path of seeing, then the path of meditation, then the path of no more learning, all in one meditation session. And that's just not logically feasible, because it takes from the time of the path of seeing to and then progressing until Buddhahood, takes a whole 2 countless eons. So, and that, which is other texts and sources claim that. So you sort of, it's a way of putting together all the different texts and sources to try to make a logically consistent perspective, where we can think, oh, well, what really must have happened is, and then, like the verses I read before, that whatever the Buddha, whatever someone sees of the Buddha's deeds is just for their benefit. So you put all that stuff together, and what you get is, well, the Buddha really, was a bodhisattva that did train, but his final lifetime that we see in the common perspective as his final lifetime was really all just an emanation, a display. He had actually been awakened before, and is just showing the path, showing what you need to do. First, you enjoy your life, you get married, you do this and that, you see how much samsara sucks, then you renounce, and then you become a Buddha.
Thank you.
Yeah, Laura, I can summary that Losante mentioned answer is no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Geshe-la. Because it's really, it's confusing because if you read the Jataka tales, the Buddha had lives before he became Buddha, the Buddha of our time. So it's a little bit confusing. So is that just a different school of thought?
Only I can say Buddha was enlightened, but Buddha was not Siddhartha before he come to this earth. So only
Okay.
it's become Siddhartha after he come to this earth.
After he came to this earth.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Okay.
The Jataka tales are his previous lives, right? So of course his continuity of consciousness was on this
But that's
earth.
where I'm confused. Excuse me. That's where I'm confused. I thought the first time the Buddha came into this realm was as Siddhartha. So
it's hard to know where the Jataka tales actually took place, but it's supposedly in the same realm-ish kind of thing.
okay.
I mean, some realm where animals can talk. I don't know.
Okay. It's a little bit confusing, but I think I get it.
No, it's just a bodhisattva needs to take a long time to train. You know, he was in all sorts of realms. It's 3 countless eons. This world didn't even exist 3 countless eons ago, right? It's only 4 billion years old. So obviously he was in other worlds as well. He was all over the place.
I want to clear a little bit. In order to make it short, though we make the topic like the story of the Buddha, so that one would misunderstand that from the birth, the Buddha is known as the Buddha, but not really. Before attaining the enlightenment under the Bodhi tree after renunciation, he was known as not the Buddha, but the Bodhisattva, Maha Bodhisattva, great aspirant of the Buddha. So until then, until the attainment of enlightenment, he was not known as the Buddha. And as Prince Siddhartha, it was not his first birth, but in the earth, but the last birth. The Buddha himself says, I am Antima Jati. This is the last birth of myself. So it was the last, but not the first.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
I think Bande Kamalashri, our time is off, and then maybe
Yes.
so we can let the dedication prayer. So please, Bande Sudatara, let us dedication prayer. Bande, you're muted. Sorry.
Thank you very much for all for giving these wonderful presentations and your responses for what speakers presented. And this story of Siddhartha will be continued until May. And then for this, during this time, that from very beginning, Venerable Nakagaki led the Vandana, the devotions, and then Venerable Rahula led the Buddhanusati, the meditation on the qualities of the Buddha, and then 2 presenters and also the moderators, they equally contributed well. So may all merits that we have acquired from all these be part of our journey to end suffering and attain freedom. And also we dedicate these merits that to the well-being of all human beings, including, excuse me, all who are suffering or who are not so suffering, and may they be able to be happy and peaceful. Then on this day or in the past, if we have done good to other beings with our body, speech, or mind, whether great or little, here before the Buddha, we call to mind those good deeds and let our heart rejoice. We rejoice in our own good deeds and gladly share our joy with all beings everywhere. We rejoice in our own good deeds, allowing this joy to further purify our hearts. May our good deeds shield us from all evil and pain. May our good deeds and merits that come from them help us in freeing our heart. May all who suffer be free from suffering. May all who have fear be free from fear. May all who are in sorrow be free from sorrow. May all obstacles be away from your path. May all ailments cease. May no danger come to you. May you have a happy and long life. Sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitatta. May all beings be well and happy. Thank you.
Sadhu, sadhu. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Yeah. Good night, all, Venerable, and all everyone.